Let me tell you something that will make you uncomfortable. The meals that could add years to your life, protect your joints, restore your gut, and keep your mind sharp into your 80s were not invented last year. They were not discovered in a laboratory. They were not printed on the back of a supplement bottle. They were written down thousands of years ago. And modern science is only now catching up to what God already knew. If you are over 60, your body is running a different biological program than it did at 40. Your inflammation pathways are more active, your gut microbiome is thinner, your muscle retention requires more intentional nutritional support than it ever did before. And here is what most doctors are not telling you. The foods that address all of those issues simultaneously were not developed in a research facility. They were given in scripture, specific combinations, specific pairings, described with a precision that modern researchers now describe as statistically improbable by accident. I have spent over 2 decades studying biblical wisdom literature in its historical and original language context, not from a pulpit, from the text itself. And what I am about to share is not devotional. It is not motivational. It is what the text actually teaches about the foods God designed for the human body and why the body you are living in right now responds to these combinations in ways that modern nutrition is only beginning to understand. We are going to walk through 5 biblical meals, and I am saving the most extraordinary for last, a 7-component combination described in a single ancient passage, where every compound in it has now been independently validated by modern research. Every single one. Most pastors will not say this from a stage, but this is not a sermon. This is the text. And the text is more specific about food, about combination, about timing, and about the body than most believers have ever been taught. Stay with me, because number 4 alone, an immune synergy pairing that your body recognizes at the cellular level, will change how you eat this week. Number 5, the cucumber. When most people think of cucumber, they think of water content, and they are right. Cucumber is roughly 96% water. But that framing undersells it dramatically. The water content is not empty hydration. It is a delivery vehicle, and what it is delivering is silica, a compound that supports connective tissue repair at the level of tendons, ligaments, and cartilage. After 60, joint degradation is not incidental, it is biological, and silica becomes one of the primary nutritional tools the body needs to slow that process. But here is what the text adds that modern nutritional labels miss entirely. In biblical meal culture, cucumber was not consumed alone. Numbers 11-5 records the specific craving the Israelites expressed in the wilderness: cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. That is not a random list. The pairing of cucumber with herbs from the mint and allium families amplifies the anti-inflammatory response. The compounds interact. The cooling, hydrating, silica-rich base of the cucumber, combined with the volatile oils in those herbs, produces a synergy that modern anti-inflammatory research is actively studying in clinical contexts. This is not coincidence. This is what I mean when I say the text encoded nutritional knowledge that did not have the language of biochemistry, but clearly understood the outcome. The body over 60, cucumber in its biblical context, combined with the herbs that accompanied it, delivers targeted support for the joints, the connective tissue, and the inflammatory pathways that are most active in the aging body. And if Scripture names the combination specifically, that is worth paying attention to. Number 4, pomegranate combined with olive oil. What makes this pairing extraordinary is not either ingredient in isolation. It is what happens when they are consumed together. Pomegranate, measured against comparable antioxidant-dense foods. Red wine, green tea, blueberries, consistently ranks higher in polyphenol concentration across multiple studies using the same measurement standard. But here is the critical piece. Polyphenols require fat for optimal absorption. Without a fat vehicle, a significant portion of what pomegranate contains passes through the body without reaching the bloodstream at the level where it can do therapeutic work. Olive oil is that vehicle. The monounsaturated fat structure of olive oil, specifically its oleocanthal content, which functions similarly to ibuprofen as an anti-inflammatory compound, does not merely carry pomegranate polyphenols into the bloodstream. It enhances the absorption pathway in a way that increases the bioavailability of what pomegranate delivers. The ancient world knew this pairing. Archaeological findings across multiple Levantine sites show pomegranate imagery woven into the design of significant structures, not casually decorative, but architecturally central, in ways that suggest this fruit carried understood cultural and therapeutic importance. And its pairing with olive oil, consistent throughout biblical meal culture, was not accidental. Research on pomegranate consumption has shown measurable improvement in antioxidant capacity and inflammatory markers in some studied populations. For the body over 60, that is directly relevant. Inflammatory processes increase with age. Oxidative stress accelerates after 60 in both men and women, and what those studies have not yet fully examined is the outcome when pomegranate is consumed with its natural fat companion, not extracted, not isolated, but paired the way the ancient world consumed it. The laboratory is still catching up to what the text already described. Before we move forward, right now in the comments, type which number you have already been eating, and of just the number, because what we are building toward in number 1 will mean something different depending on which of these your diet already includes. Number 3, lentils. In the ancient world, lentils were not eaten simply because they were inexpensive, though they were. They were eaten because the people who prepared food understood, through generations of observation, that lentil-based meals produced specific outcomes: sustained energy, stable mood, physical endurance. The pottage described in Genesis 25, that specific lentil preparation, was not peasant food. It was functional nutrition. The protein fiber folate matrix in lentils is now recognized by modern nutritionists as close to ideal for post-60 metabolic function. Here is why that matters. After 60, two things happen simultaneously in the body that work against each other, and if muscle mass begins to decline: sarcopenia, requiring increased protein intake at the precise moment that many older adults begin reducing protein consumption because of digestive sensitivity, and blood sugar regulation becomes less efficient, requiring the body to manage glucose spikes more carefully than before. Lentils address both problems in the same meal. The protein content, approximately 18 grams per cooked cup, supports muscle retention. The fiber, approximately 16 grams per cooked cup, slows glucose absorption and supports the stable blood sugar regulation the aging body requires. And the folate supports the methylation pathways that become critical for cognitive function and cellular repair after 60. In its original biblical context, combined with herbs, prepared slowly, consumed as a substantial meal rather than a side dish, the combination produces a nutritional outcome that no isolated supplement replicates. Scripture does not give us lentils as a footnote. It gives them to us as a transaction. Something of great value was exchanged for this meal. That is not a cultural accident. That is encoded importance. Number 2, honey combined with figs. The fig is not a casual biblical reference. It appears in Genesis, in Numbers, in Deuteronomy, in the Psalms, in Jeremiah, and in the New Testament. Its recurrence is not literary decoration. A fig tree was the marker of peace, of provision, of settled abundance. 1 Kings 4:25 records each man sitting under his own vine and his own fig tree as the description of Solomon's era of prosperity. You do not center an agricultural image in your vision of shalom unless that tree is feeding people something significant. Research on fig consumption has produced measurable outcomes in studied populations, and the mechanism being examined is the prebiotic fiber complex in figs, specifically compounds that selectively feed beneficial gut bacteria while creating an environment less hospitable to pathogenic bacteria. But the ancient pairing is honey alongside figs. Honey contains prebiotic compounds, substances that function as food for the beneficial bacteria in the gut microbiome. The honey does not heal the gut directly, it feeds the organisms that do the healing. And it contains enzymatic activity, specifically the enzyme glucose oxidase, that produces hydrogen peroxide in the presence of moisture, giving honey its documented antimicrobial properties. Combined, fig and honey deliver a prebiotic feeding event and an antimicrobial environment simultaneously. For the body over 60, where gut microbiome diversity has often declined significantly from its earlier peak, this combination does not merely support digestion. It initiates a restoration process at the microbial level that affects energy, immunity, cognitive clarity, and inflammatory response throughout the entire body. You are the steward of this body, and stewardship of this body after 60 begins in the gut. The ancient world knew this. The text named it. Now we have arrived at the most significant teaching in everything we have covered today. Everything. The cucumber's silica, the pomegranate's polyphenols, the lentil matrix, the fig and honey restoration. All of it is preparation for understanding why number one is not one food. Number one, the 7 food combination described in Ezekiel 4-9. The text gives a specific instruction: wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, spelt, prepared together, combined with olive oil. Modern researchers who have examined this passage from a nutritional standpoint have noted something the original audience did not have language to describe, but clearly understood through practice. This 7-component combination produces a nutritional synergy that no single superfood replicates. Wheat and barley together provide a resistant starch profile that researchers associate with reduced systemic inflammation markers and improved insulin sensitivity. Resistant starch functions as a prebiotic. It reaches the colon largely undigested and feeds the beneficial bacterial communities that govern immune function. The fiber structure of barley specifically, including its beta-glucan content, has been studied in clinical contexts for effects on cholesterol regulation and blood sugar stabilization. Beans and lentils together complete an amino acid profile that neither provides alone. This is the protein completeness principle that modern nutritional science formalized in the 20th century. The ancient world applied it without the vocabulary. The outcome was the same. Millet provides resistant starch and magnesium, a mineral that becomes critically depleted in the aging body and whose deficiency has been associated in research with increased cardiovascular risk, impaired sleep, and accelerated cognitive decline. Spelt provides lignans, plant compounds that interact with hormonal signaling pathways in ways that may reduce inflammatory activity. For bodies over 60, managing the hormonal shifts that accelerate inflammatory processes is not secondary. It is central, and olive oil, which we already established as the bioavailability amplifier, carries all of it. Every single compound in this 7-food combination has been independently studied and validated. Every single one, the synergy between them, the way resistant starch from barley feeds the bacteria that process the lignans from spelt to produce anti-inflammatory metabolites, while the oleocanthal in olive oil addresses the same inflammatory pathways from a completely different direction. That synergy produces an outcome that no single ingredient produces alone. Modern science did not discover this combination, it confirmed it. And of studies on populations that have maintained similar whole grain and legume-based meal patterns across generations, show reduced markers of systemic inflammation, maintain bone density relative to age-matched groups on Western dietary patterns, and measurably better preservation of cognitive function in aging. These are not small effects. These are the biological outcomes that every person over 60 is trying to achieve, and most are pursuing through supplements, through medications, through interventions that address individual symptoms rather than the underlying nutritional architecture. God did not give us scripture only for our souls. He gave us a manual for these bodies, and the manual was not written in the language of biochemistry. It was written in the language of provision. These are the foods of a land flowing with milk and honey. These are the foods that a body over 60 was designed to receive. You can know something and not understand it. That is exactly what has happened with biblical nutrition in the modern church. We have read these passages for millennia. We have not understood them as the nutritional architecture they represent. Now you understand them. Here is where I want to leave you today, and I am not going to leave you comfortably. Most people who watch a teaching like this will find it interesting. They will file it mentally. and they will change nothing about what they eat this week. I am asking you to be someone different. Start with one of these 5 foods, just one, this week. Not all 5. 1, the text does not give us wisdom for the purpose of accumulating information. It gives us wisdom for the purpose of transformation. And transformation begins with one decision made once, held consistently. You are the steward of a body God designed with more precision than any medical textbook has yet fully mapped. Walk in that stewardship. If someone you love is over 60 and struggling with energy, with inflammation, with the slow erosion that aging does not have to accelerate, share this with them. It may be exactly what they have been waiting to hear. Walk wisely.